Views and opinions expressed by Edwin are Edwin and Edwin's only, all right? Not of his sponsors, employers, baby mama, anybody he went to school with, anybody he owe money to. With that being said, enjoy the video. What is going on, everyone? Edwin Pagan here. Thanks for joining me on the Word on the Road podcast, your weekly technology care package, man. I am your host, Edwin Pagan. If you're new to the channel, this is a weekly podcast I do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where I take 3 articles from the internet, usually technology related, that I find interesting, fascinating, corona related, etc. I give you my analysis on them, I break them down, I give you my insights, and then I send you on your way more educated and more informed about the interwebs, the world, and everything related to technology. With that being said, man, I hope everyone's having a great Monday morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you're watching this. I know everyone's in quarantine. I know this podcast was designed to be enjoyed at work, while you're using the bathroom, or when you're when you're driving to work. But since everyone's remote now, apparently there's no that demographic is over. But with that being said, man, I hope everyone's doing good, man. I've been had a great weekend. I spent it in the quarantine because I am quarantined, and no, it was a good weekend, man. I did a lot of streaming. I got to work a little bit on technology, more on just kind of like fine tuning the stuff in the studio. It's crazy because I have one of the MacBook Pros, and I'll tell you what, bro, I am never buying Mac laptops ever again, bro. It is one of those things where when people ask me to suggest computers, I'm like, yeah, I go with Dell, man. You know, like it's like Macs are so prone to overheating, and as much as I love the hardware, like, so for me in my previous job, I used Mac, and I was a huge proponent of Mac. And the only reason I was a proponent of Mac is because at my last job, I was spoiled when it came to technology because I was the IT guy. And so I literally, like, if anything was wrong with my computer, boom, get a new one. And so I had the ability to have like disposable Macs where I could just literally, if anything went wrong with my Mac, I would just order a new one from the from our inventory and swap it out. And I would just keep rotating Macs. And so to me, it wasn't that much of an issue because I was able to replace the Mac. But now that I have like my own and I have to service it and deal with the issues, it's a pain in the ass. Like right now, I have my Mac opened up and I have a fan pointing into it to get as much air in there as possible because like the thermals of the computer itself, the computer's like overheating. It can't like it's definitely like not cooling down. And so it's a drag too because there's times where I'm trying to render video and it takes like 3 hours to render like a 40-minute video on the Mac. And then like the processor, it's like 200 degrees in there, man. So it's crazy. I got to deal with those technology issues. But listen, as an IT guy, you're going to have the technology issues, right? But with Mac in particular, it's just like I'm so over it. I'm like this tempted to just like and this is nothing to say against like the iPad Pro because I'm down to get the iPad Pro. But with these new laptops that Apple makes that they're just dedicated to make them as small as possible, it's just too much crap in there that I can't personally fix. That it's like, bro, if you're gonna pay $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 for a computer, you want to be able to fix it or replace some of the components or upgrade it. But with Mac, you really do like sign the contract and put a ring on it as far as like upgrades go. And so it's an issue that I'm dealing with, but like, you know, like I said, I'm doing everything possible to like suck as much juice out of this computer before I toss it to the curb because when the board does fail on it or when it does fail, I'm definitely not going to be replacing it. I think I'm going to end up building my own desktop system, like just a high performance desktop for streaming and stuff like that, because I'm just so over like the Mac, like the whole Mac setup, because there's a lot of computers out there that like from Dell particularly that like you can fix, that like are upgradable, that have great warranty, etc., that like I don't want to deal with the Mac, right? Because like it's definitely possible to have the Mac and not have issues, or if you do have issues, like get the warranty. But it's like, imagine right now, like what we're dealing with quarantine, and you can't fix your computer. You can't take it to the Genius Bar. It's 5, 6, 7 days without your computer. It's a mess, bro. So I'm done with Mac. That little vent of mine was I'm done with Mac. But with that being said, man, I did some streaming online as well. I did some game streaming over the weekend, which was dope, man, because I did a little bit of both. Like I did some like RPG, like first-person shooter, which is great, but it's hard to talk to people, in my opinion. Like look at the chat and play the game, try and do that. So I did some like 8-ball pool last night where I was playing some like like pool. It's like a game on the Apple App Store and on Android. It's a really addicting pool game, billiards. And yeah, man, that was fun to stream. I think I'm gonna do that more often just because it gives me the ability to kind of like stream and talk to people, and it's not as like fast paced. But like it's crazy because I've been having like technical issues with that as well, and so kind of like fine tuning that, because like I want to give like the best possible quality stream on Facebook, and whenever I stream, I want it to be the best possible stream or quality that I can provide, because I feel like I don't have an excuse not to provide like a high quality stream because of the tools that I have. And so trying to do that and deal with like Facebook's technology and stuff like that, it could be tricky sometimes, but I think I got it down to a science. But I've been doing that, and also been just like live webcam streaming on YouTube where people can just talk to me. And I guess, like I said, man, it's a weird time in technology, but to me, it's just like one of the things someone told me is like I need to work on my engagement on social media, and so I'm taking it very seriously. So I'm trying to engage more on social media, and it's not only social media but on YouTube and stuff like that. So it's very, very interesting times to do that. But man, with that being said, bro, let's go ahead and jump right into the stories. Enough about myself. Let's go ahead and jump into the stories, man. Of course, all the stories we talk about today will be listed in the description below if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on the audio podcast, it will be in the bio section of the podcast, man. So with that being said, we got some interesting articles today, and we'll go ahead and jump right into it from the fine folks. I never use CNN, but god dang it, this is the only article I could find. So this is from fine folks at CNN. So the U.S. Army bans soldiers from using TikTok over security concerns, man. Now this has been all over the news, particularly with like government and legislators about the application TikTok. Now, if you got kids, you know what TikTok is, right? It's that little dancing application. Now, I think I had done a previous story about this, but what the issues going on is that the U.S. has concerns about TikTok because it is a Chinese-owned application, and what they're saying is that TikTok itself, the application, is accessing a lot of information about your phone. And what concerns the U.S. is that it's a Chinese-owned company, and the fact that there's a lot of industrial spying that goes on from China. And so what they're saying is that not Chinese, but the government from China is able to view people's data on phones, right? From web history to who you're calling, view text messages, view messages, etc. They're able to do that through the TikTok application. Now, I would like to see how realistic that actually is. Some type of proof of concept that the application is capable of gathering that type of information. Because, in my opinion, Apple does a very good job of restricting developers to certain parts of your device, right? So you can easily disable the microphone from being accessed by an application. So that's something that TikTok is able to do. So what the U.S. Army and what the government is kind of pushing for is saying that like the TikTok application cannot be installed on government-based phones. Now, in my opinion, right, and this is just kind of my opinion on the situation, it's a work phone. So why the hell is TikTok installed on the application, right? I feel like this doesn't require legislation in order to say, hey, you shouldn't have TikTok on your phone. It's one of those things that, like, by default, if it's your work phone, there's no reason why you should have Snapchat on there or Facebook or Instagram and things like that, especially if you're talking about DoD, like if you have DoD files on that device, or it's a device that accesses a corporate network, you don't want people accidentally uploading their files to the cloud because they installed some application. So I think it's on the government's end to make sure that there's other restrictions on their phones that prevent users from just installing TikTok. But the government is also warning parents to say, hey, your kids are at risk as well, because they're using these applications and the Chinese government can access them. And that on that side of things, I don't look at it as a legitimate threat. I think there's a lot to be said. If you spend a lot of time on TikTok, there's nothing on that platform that kids are putting out that the U.S. or the Chinese government can use to interfere with national security, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so I feel like a huge part of legislators are trying to blow this thing way out of proportion and make it seem like a bigger deal than it really is. At the end of the day, there's millions of applications on the App Store that are also Chinese-based applications from in China, Chinese companies based. And so for us to have these type of concerns at this level, it's like, well, yeah, it's an application, right? Versus like what we saw with Huawei phones, where like there was built-in spyware and stuff like that. And so again, like when they say it's a national security concern, it's one of those things where I was like, how is that a national security concern? In what respect? If it's on a consumer, a civilian phone versus government, I can understand the government side of it, but to say that this application needs to be banned altogether, good luck. Because if you take down TikTok, if you ban TikTok, 1,000 other applications very similar to TikTok will pop up. And so that's kind of my take on that. Like I said, I find it amusing that they're saying you are not allowed to have TikTok on your government phone. I'm like, yeah, I thought that was kind of like, common sense that you're not supposed to have it. But with that being said, next article is coming from the fine folks at this was actually MSN.com. Well, what's going on here? This article, let me reload it because the article looked a lot better, but this is coming from the fine folks at MSN.com, and I think I enabled reader view, but this is I'm sorry, the Washington Post, but it's sorted by MSN.com. So thousands of Zoom video calls left exposed on the open web. So of course, if you're not familiar with what Zoom is now a popular video conferencing software that's being used by a lot of people for obviously for the quarantine, but it's used to have group chats, right? So to have high quality group video. It's very similar to things like Microsoft Skype, but it's a lot easier to use. It's more consumer friendly, and now more than ever, it's being used by schools to hold online classes, to hold meetings, or for families to kind of have group video chats with each other. Because of course, when you have things like Apple FaceTime, but you got to have an Apple phone to do it. You have things like Skype, but apparently Zoom is the one that's kind of taken off the most. And so what's interesting about this article, what's going on, is that a lot of people are adapting to Zoom, and Zoom is facing a lot of scrutiny right now because everyone is using the application, and a lot of people don't actually know how to use the application. And so what the article talks about is that a lot of people are recording video calls, whether they realize it or not. They're recording the video call and then uploading it to a website without realizing it, and then there's thousands and thousands of videos online right now that you can search for that are Zoom conference calls that people did not realize they were being recorded, and people didn't realize that they were uploaded. And so in the article, they kind of talk about things such as doctor's visits. One was like a therapy session. One was like a kindergarten class that was having a remote class. The whole entire session was recorded and uploaded to the internet. So Zoom is facing, the Zoom application is facing a lot of scrutiny right now because of things like encryption, because of security concerns. Now, the one issue I have with all of this, and what kind of one of my concerns is that like I always question how much slack we should be giving a company versus the reality of that slack, right? And what I mean by that is that like it's very easy for competitors, such as Skype, to say, hey, that application is crappy, or there's a security vulnerability, to scare people from using the application, to then drive them to their application. Because you would think that Skype would be the clear choice, right? You would think that other applications like Facebook Messenger would be the clear choice for video conferencing, but Zoom seems to be the one that people are adapting to. And so it's not that far-fetched to see competitors, in my opinion, try to diminish the product in order to come in with their product, right? But with that being said, there's also an aspect of this that I feel that like the accountability needs to be put on the users of the application and making sure that they understand how to use the application. Because one of the things on Zoom, from what I'm seeing, is that by default it does not record the conference call. And so if people are enabling this feature and they don't realize what they're doing, that's an issue. Especially if they're enabling it and uploading it, that's an issue. At my previous company, we had Skype for Business, and there was the ability to record calls, but that feature was disabled, and you had to get special permission to have that feature enabled. And one of the things you have to do is make sure that everyone on that call knew that call was being recorded. And if you don't let people know, now you're running into legal issues, and so and legal and liability issues. And so I think at a certain point, the responsibility needs to be put on the consumers to say, hey, do you know how to use this application? Did you watch the tutorial? Do you know what features are enabled, et cetera, et cetera? Because Zoom right now, on top of these issues, you're having you're seeing a huge spike in what you call like Zoom bombing, which is basically you connect to a random Zoom call that you weren't invited to and you start trolling, right? And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the meeting organizers, the one who set up the meeting, they didn't set privacy settings, they didn't set a password, they made the meeting public. I mean, the list goes on and the things that they could have done that they didn't do that led to the system being compromised in those issues. So again, I think that a huge part of this just has to do with the fact that there's a learning curve, that people are just adapting to the software. This is the first time using it. And so I think the more awareness we spread about that, then the more less likely this is to happen. Not to say that Zoom can't be doing a better job of educating users, of really showcasing, hey, this is what's happening. Maybe like having a summary after you do the Zoom call to kind of highlight, what's going to happen after this call is over. But again, a lot of this I feel is being blown way out of proportion for reasons that I feel are companies' attempts to diminish Zoom in order to make room for their products, right? So because the fact that I type in Zoom on Google or etc. and I find all these negative articles kind of speaks to the fact that I feel like a lot of companies are pushing to get other people on their software because now more than ever there's a huge need for video conferencing software. And so the fact that the irony and the idea that hey, let's get Zoom out of the way so we can make room for Google Duo, Facebook Messenger, Cisco technology, Skype for Business, Microsoft Teams. I mean the list goes on and on of the amount of video conferencing software that's out there. WebEx, GoToMeeting, Blue Jeans. I mean, Jesus, I can name a couple here. But with that being said, that's kind of my take on that whole situation. So last but not least is coming from the fine folks at TheVerge.com, which is British 5G's towers are being set on fire because coronavirus theories. Man, now I gotta tell you, bro, this has been the most ridiculous. The irony in hearing my friends talk about how they think 5G and coronavirus are somehow related is interesting to say the least. And a lot of people believe that 5G is going to be the end of us, that it's going to cook us alive. And so with all that being said, so the article kind of talks about a gentleman who apparently has been setting 5G towers on fire, right? This is one of the towers right here. Let me see if they can is this a video? No, that's kind of the tower being set on fire. And let's see what this looks like. Let me see real quick. Where is the tower at? So I kind of want to just showcase what's going on here. What the Okay, all right. Well, that's not what I want to see. So if you're not familiar with what 5G is, and I kind of give you the bro science of 5G, and I think I'm going to do a separate video kind of really detailing this, but if you're not familiar with 5G, 5G obviously is similar to what we call 4G, which in a nutshell, it's faster internet on a mobile device. When we start talking about 5G, right, 5G gives us the ability to have extremely fast internet, responsive internet on a mobile device anywhere and everywhere, right? So imagine the fact that if you didn't have to plug in your Xbox Live into your cable modem, right? Because it had a built-in 5G modem, and that same speed you would get from your cable modem, you're getting on your mobile device, and you can get that anywhere where 5G is available. So imagine if you're able to take high-speed internet, extremely high-speed internet, and integrate it into anywhere in any application, right? So we're talking about, traffic cameras. We're talking about traffic sensors. We're talking about weather sensors that have 5G antennas that can give high-quality data and information back to our servers or whatever using 5G. Now, the biggest difference between 5G and 4G technology is that 5G requires more antennas in order to be more accessible versus one giant antenna that everyone connects to. So with 5G, you have these little microcells that are everywhere. So you have extensive microcells that are being installed in order to spread coverage of the 5G technology, right? And so with that being said, that's where the concern is coming from people, because they're concerned that, okay, wait a minute, they're used to seeing one giant antenna. Now you're seeing a whole wide spread of 5G antennas in order to provide 5G coverage. And so what people's fear is that you have this radios that are everywhere that are constantly broadcasting. What are the health effects of that? And so that being said, people think that somehow that technology has something to do with this bacterial disease or virus called coronavirus or COVID-19. And so people are so freaking far, like losing it right now, that they believe that 5G designed coronavirus. Because like you think if anything, Corona would or 5G would like burn or microwave the virus, right? Kind of like how chemotherapy radiates the cancer away from your body. You think the 5G technology would do that, but there is dozens of videos on the internet right now kind of showcasing that, hey, is 5G killing people? I seen a video where, let me see if I could find it on this article, where a gentleman was like, check out this tree. This tree has a 5G antenna near it, and because of that, the leaves are falling away and stuff like that. And so the list goes on and on. And so for me, the thing is that like misinformation is a big problem, right? Especially in today's era. And so to me, you're going to continue to see a lot of theories about 5G, and then when 5G finally gets implemented, you're going to realize that like, hey, this is kind of cool. Were we just kind of like worried about nothing to begin with? You know what I mean? But this is kind of like the nutshell of what 5G is and the concerns that people have. Definitely look online, and there's definitely more research about 5G. The one thing I'm going to say, because I like to play a devil's advocate in everything, it's new technology, so we actually don't know if there is health effects with 5G technology. But to completely dismiss it before it's even been implemented, because it hasn't been implemented in Orlando yet, it hasn't been implemented in Florida yet, it hasn't been implemented in a lot of places, to completely dismiss it right now, it would be silly, right? Because I saw a petition in Florida where people are trying to ban 5G technology from coming out. I'm like, bro, it hasn't even been released yet. How are you going to ban something that hasn't been released yet? Because the benefits, in my opinion, of 5G technology are going to be amazing. You know what I mean? The fact that you can put a high speed internet anywhere where 5G is available, that means that you can put it in places where you don't need to go in there and dig a hole and bring in a fiber connection and a cable connection and a cable box and set up all this infrastructure to have an internet. You could just have a 5G cell there and boom, you're good to go. You got high speed internet. And so the use case for it is crazy. You know, the ability for cars to have high speed internet on them, I mean truly high speed internet, means that more autonomous driving, more responsive of cars that are communicating with. So, I mean, the list goes on and on for use cases, and people are choosing to focus on this conspiracy theory that 5G is going to kill us all. But that being said, man, this has been the articles for today. This kind of sums up everything we're going to talk about, man. Like I said, man, all the articles discussed below are in the description, and if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, etc., it is in the bio. But with that being said, guys, this has been the Word on the Road podcast. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, man. So until next time, my name's Edwin Pagan. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like, etc., and until next time, take care, everyone. Peace.
Max, what are you doing?
Watching my dad's channel.
Watching your dad's YouTube channel?